Go ahead and get started. Um, Thanks for joining us this morning. This is a webinar on contaminants encountered with turnout gear. What we're going to cover is ways to mitigate your exposures, also best practices as we go through this. A little bit about me. My name is Brian Marenko. I've been in the industry for about 29 years now. I've worked for cleaning care companies. I've worked for gear manufacturers. In all cases, I've worked with end users in the field with how to implement 1851 practices, be it if you do it yourself, if you use a third-party ISP, or if you do a hybrid of both. I've worked side by side with many agencies across the country to provide insight in how to accomplish those things. I also currently sit on NFPA 1850 as an alternate under VISPA. So I'm also part of the process going forward, or help be part of the process going forward. So the types of contaminants you get involved with will predicate the type of cleaning methods that you deploy. It's important to note there's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Oftentimes, you're doing a multitude of things to get your gear back to a serviceable condition. As you see, there's a wide variety of things you can come into contact with, and obviously we don't have everything listed here. But when you are exposed, you want to try your best to understand what you've been exposed to. This will help play a role in the cleaning method needed. In some cases, it'll also play a role on whether or not the gear can be cleaned. There are some contaminants like chlorine, for example. If you're exposed to it, more than likely your gear will rapidly degrade and fall apart. That said, there's really no point in going any further once you know you've been exposed to chlorine. Other types of contaminants, like let's say asbestos, for instance, if you suspect you've been contaminated or exposed to asbestos, the thing to do is to contact a local lab and talk to them, and they will be able to guide you on how to take a water sample from your gear to bring it in to determine whether or not asbestos is indeed present. I know a lot of older buildings likely have asbestos, and sometimes you come away thinking that you've been contaminated, but that simple test will definitely confirm if asbestos is present. And in many cases, you might be surprised to know that even though you thought you might have been exposed, you may not have been based on the test results. So it's important to understand what you may have been exposed to. As I mentioned, it'll play a role in how you econ the year going forward. So the FAST report was something that was funded by the IFF. It stands for Fluorescent Aerosol Screening Test, or FAST. It was done in 2015. The idea behind this report was to determine what particles made it through to the firefighter. What firefighters were to do was to have a set of gear on. They were put into a chamber that had this aerosol mist in it, and they did a variety of tasks. And when they came out, the gear was removed, and they looked at the interface areas to see what particulates made it through. As you see in the photograph here of the firefighter's head, pay attention to the neck and jaw line. You'll see this is a great example of where those fluorescent particles made it through, and under black light, you're able to easily see that penetration. This helped lead to the switch over from your traditional hood to now your particulate blocking hoods. This is the catalyst that helped put that into motion. As you'll see here, the top areas are before photos, the bottom is after. Again, look at the interface areas, look at the neck. You'll see there's a glow to it, and you see right around the firefighter's waist, there was also some penetration of some of those particulates that made it through. And as you see for the pants, top is before, bottom is after. In the bottom left photograph, I mean, you can pretty clearly see where the boots cut off at, right at the knee and thigh area. There's particulate that made it through into those areas, and again, all interface areas that are a challenge for all turnout gear, because as you know, you're not completely encapsulated. With this information, and also with information with a firefighter's cancer risk, as I'm sure many of you are already aware, you're at about 2 times more likely than the regular population to acquire cancer. And part of this presentation is we're going to reveal some things or go over some things that you can do right now to help mitigate that risk. So exposure reduction was something that was created in the most current edition of 1851. It ended up replacing routine cleaning. And routine cleaning, for those of you who recall, was a firefighter requirement. You were expected to, at the scene, mitigate your exposure by setting up more or less a scrub table and a bucket of water and soap, and scrub the gear down, rinse it off. And as time has shown, that really wasn't practical. So what was introduced was preliminary exposure reduction, and that took the place of routine cleaning. And as you see in the photograph here, there's 2 methods of preliminary exposure reduction. There's a dry mitigation, where while you're on air, you would take the firefighter and with a soft bristle brush, rub over their gear, and then you would bag it immediately, again, while remaining on air. And what you see here is this is wet mitigation, where again, you're still on air. You take water, spray the firefighter down. You could also introduce soap if you want. But bottom line here is just by wetting the gear down, you reduce the airborne particulate by 85%. It's important to point out it's reducing the airborne particulate. It's not you're effectively cleaning the gear 85% better. It's you're reducing the airborne particulate by 85%. Once the gear is wet down, put it in a 2 mil plastic bag. If you're going to put it in a plastic bag, I recommend that you use a clear plastic bag. This way you can see what's inside of it. If you do not use a clear plastic bag, excuse me, there may be an occasion where someone mistakes it as trash and they throw it away. But with the different methods, the wet mitigation is by far the best in reducing the airborne particulate. When you're transporting gear, you do not want to transport it in the cab with you. Ideally, you like to have it in at least a 2 mil bag, as described, and have a dedicated compartment, within the apparatus where you would put that contaminated gear. You also do not want to transport it in your personal vehicle, if you can avoid it. But if you must, again, you want a 2 mil plastic bag where the gear is stored in it. So this way you do not cross-contaminate your vehicle. Also keep it out of common areas within the firehouse. In all cases, keep it away from exhaust fumes from the apparatus. And when you get back to the station, if you do have your own cleaning operation set up, you want to clean sooner than later. You do not want to leave the gear in a bag for a period of days and then wash it at that point. If you did leave it in the bag for that period of time, more than likely mold and mildew will set in, and mold and mildew sometimes are more difficult to remove than some other common contaminants you become involved with. So take action right away. Now, if you don't have a washer extractor set up back at the station, this would be an occasion where you want to reach out to either a verified cleaner or a verified ISP to arrange for your gear to be sent off and cleaned. If you do not have backup gear, this might be a point in time where you would want to consider renting gear. Um, uh, by renting gear, you can rent a group. You could rotate through the department as you're getting your gear serviced. Um, but if that's something that doesn't speak to you and you need to keep the gear in house because of uh, needs to have it there, you can still talk to your verified cleaner, verified ISP as to set up a cleaning schedule, a turnaround schedule that meets your needs. Now, mind you, it may take longer to clean your gear through this process as you're rotating it through a longer period of time. But it's something that certainly can be done, particularly with the firefighters off days while they're off duty. You just need to make sure you have that conversation with your third-party ISP so that they understand and know what your turnaround requirements are. But again, the easy button here, if you don't have adequate backup gear at the station, you can certainly reach out to a third party, such as Gear Wash, and acquire rental gear for the time that your gear is out of service. So there's various cleaning methods that are used for cleaning turnout gear. I'm going to go through each one of them. Again, it's important to understand that it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. You're likely going to need to use a lot of these things in unison to achieve the result that you're looking for. If you do have cleaning equipment back at your firehouse, washers, extractors, and whatnot, there is a requirement within 1851 that you have to receive training from either your original equipment manufacturer or a verified ISP for how to wash your equipment. And what this is, it's more or less making sure you've got the right equipment, the right cycles, you have the know-how, you're taking gear apart and washing it, appropriately. But there is a training requirement that is a documented training requirement that is there that you need to be aware of. So if you do have a machine back at this firehouse, what you're looking for is program cycles, G-forces. That's the rate at which the machine spins the water out. They're capped at 100 G-force. You may ask yourself why 100 G-force. It was about 15, 20 years ago, where this requirement was not in the standard, and there was a period of time where washing machines were marketed on their ability, their G-force ability. So 300, 400, 500 G-force, your gear would come out almost dry, which is appealing rather than letting it air dry for a period of hours. The trouble with G-forces that high, yes, it did come out dry, but it also came out missing a sleeve, missing a leg, because those G-forces were too great and caused considerable damage to the gear. So NFPA capped them at 100 Gs. Most machines made today, within the last decade, respect this requirement and more or less come programmed that way, but it never hurts to check. These types of machines are very good at removing physical matter, construction debris, surface contamination. The things that you have to consider is you have to look at how you're loading the machine. You don't want to overload it. You don't want to underload it. Overloading it reduces its cleaning effect. Underloading it increases the wear and tear found on your turnout gear. The other thing that you need to know is the liners and shells need to be separated. So in one load, you're washing liners, and another load, you're washing outer shells. Ideally, if you have a money tree out in the backyard, you'd like to have two wash machines side by side. So this way you can put your liners in one, your shells in another, turn them both on at the same time, and they're both generally done at the same time. Another cleaning practice is ultrasonic cleaning. This has been in practice for about the past decade. Many ISPs utilize ultrasonic cleaning. It's a much more efficient way to clean your hard goods, your helmets, your SCBAs, your boots. Like for instance, your helmets can go into a quick ultrasonic bath, 5-10 minutes tops. Come out, you wipe them down with a soft cloth and air dry. I mean, very effective. In some cases, depending upon the overall wear to your helmet, it almost returns to like a like new look, if you will. But these machines are on the expensive side, but they do perform very well when it comes to cleaning gear, much more effectively than having the firefighter stand there with a scrub brush and soap and scrubbing their helmets and then rinsing them off. So it's also good, as I mentioned, for boots and a CVA part as well. Soak tank is another method. You would commonly find this for heavy exposures. Um, uh, think of tar, think of oil. These are things that you would soak over a period of time in water with a cleaning agent. Um, and after that period of time, you would take it out, rinse it off, and see if you need to soak any longer. It's an arduous process. It does take time. There's a lot of rinsing that goes on, and and it's always followed up with washing and extractor. More so to break down the cleaning agents that you've used during the soak, also to rinse them all out, because you do not want any cleaning agent remaining in your turnout gear, as they can and will support flame. Ozone cleaning. Uh, this is primarily used for biological cleaning. It's very good at organic compounds and biological sanitization. It's an ozone generator. It's added to the intake on the washing machine. So as the water's coming in, the ozone's coming in with it. Um, does a great job at doing those things. The one thing that you want to consider is if you use any delaminine based product, there is a reaction between the two. So you definitely want to avoid that from happening. And when I say delaminine, if your cleaning products smell citrusy, like oranges, that's a good indicator delaminine is present, because delaminine, it's the extract of orange peels, which is why it smells citrusy and like an orange, is because that's exactly what it is. It's the extract of orange peels. So you want to avoid combining those two together. Under CO2 cleaning, it's more of lately it's been a hot topic within the industry. It's a waterless cleaning. It's at high pressure. It's often used for specialized cleaning, but can also be used for advanced cleaning. It's great at VOC reduction, great at removing fuel and tar. Some of the things to know is it's not as good at removing heavy metals, in comparison to your VOC reduction. Oftentimes, to meet requirements, gear is pre-washed in a regular washing machine and prepped before CO2 cleaning, particularly for your heavy metal reduction results. Also, things to note: gear cannot be saturated with water before being placed into the CO2 machine. So if you're following, like in my earlier slide, the preliminary exposure reduction, and you're wetting the gear down after exposure, that's going to present a challenge for CO2. The gear will either need to be dried before you put it in there, which I'm not so sure you want to do. I don't know that's a good idea to take a contaminated set of gear and dry it um, uh, in your environment. Or you could wash it in a regular machine, then dry it, and then place it in the CO2 machine. So the misnomer with CO2, at times it's marketed as you don't need to water wash at all, and that's very far from the truth. In many cases, you will need to pre-wash in a regular wash machine before you utilize CO2. The combination of both, washing in a regular machine and then also in CO2, is a good combination. I mean, it definitely gives you better results, but CO2 by itself is not your silver bullet. It does not do well with construction debris. It does not do well with physical matter. Those things would need to be pre-treated ahead of time. So it's a misnomer to think you can just take a contaminated set of gear and place it straight in the CO2 machine. You can do that. It's just not going to give you the result that you think that you'll get at the end of the day. So as I go through this, there's a degree of things that we need to review as to if you're using a third-party ISP or if you're doing things in-house, to what degree are you removing things? I think many of you on this phone call, as you join the call, may feel that placing your gear in a wash machine cures everything. Placing it in a CO2 machine cures everything. But that's not the truth. The truth is there's science up to this point demonstrates at least a 50% removal rate, which I'll talk about here in a moment. But as we get into this, just to kind of give you the background, if you're using a third-party ISP, the following test criteria I'm going to talk about applies to your third party. And I also want to say as a caveat, it only applies to you, the organization, the fire department, if you volunteer that it applies to you. So if you're washing gear at your station right now, you do not have to undergo what I'm about to show you. The only time you would undergo it is if you said, hey, I want to be tested in this manner. So very important distinction. If you're using a third-party cleaning care provider, they have to go through this, but you as an organization, you do not have to go through this unless you volunteer for it. So there's two levels of cleaners. There's a verified cleaner, and there's two levels of ISPs. There's a verified cleaner, and then there's a verified ISP. So the difference between the two is a verified cleaner is just that. They're verified to clean only. They are not verified to do inspection. They're not verified to do repairs, but at least, per NFPA 1851. Whereas a verified ISP is fully verified. They're verified for their cleaning ability. They also have to maintain a quality manual for how they inspect equipment, how it's repaired, and then they also have to undergo sampling of various repairs. So the difference between the two, one's cleaning only and the other is full blown. So I guess in layman's terms, if you bring your car to a car detailer and you're getting it detailed, washed and waxed and what have you, that's what a verified cleaner would be. But if you had a problem with your engine, it was making a noise, or you need your car inspected, you would not bring it to your car detailer to have that done. You would then take it to your mechanic. So in a sense, a verified ISP is your car mechanic. They're able to, to do everything, where a verified cleaner can clean only. That said, as you utilize, if you do utilize a third party, understand each facility, each mobile unit needs its own independent verification. So Gear Wash, for instance, has 10 brick and mortar facilities and one mobile unit. At the end of the day, we have to maintain 11 separate certifications. Yes, it's very expensive. No, you cannot verify one facility and share that certificate with your others. Very important distinction. So here's a chart on who can do what. As an organization, you want to pay attention to columns 3 and 4 here. As an end user, you're expected to do your own routine inspection. You're expected to do your own preliminary exposure reduction. And if you so choose, you can be trained, manufacturer trained to do your cleanings and your advanced inspections all the way up to basic repair. So that's what you, excuse me, want to focus on. As I said, verified cleaner versus verified ISP, you can see there's quite a difference in what can be done. Also, manufacturers can participate in being a provider, and as you see how that breaks down as well. So I talked a lot about testing. And so here's the information you need to know about testing. So as a third-party ISP, whether you're a verified cleaner or a verified ISP, you're tested on your cleaning abilities to remove the following contaminants. So there's a total of 15 contaminants. First 9 are considered volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, and then the next 6 are heavy metals. Excuse me. So what you need to do to pass is you have to demonstrate at least, on average, and that's the key words here, on average, 50% removal rates for each category. So out of the top 9, you need to demonstrate, on average, you remove 50% of them. And separately, for your heavy metals, the same principle. You have to demonstrate at least 50% removal. So I'll give you an example. Let's take heavy metals, for instance. So out of the 6 that are listed here, the antimony, the arsenic, and cadmium, if you removed 100% of those and remove none of the chromium, cobalt, and lead, you pass, because your on average removal rate's 50%. So the misnomer within industry is whether you're using a CO2 machine or a regular wash machine or a combination of both, you would want to believe that when you're washing gear, you're removing 100% of everything. That's just not the benchmark in place yet. Like I said, all you need to demonstrate is an on average of 50% removal rates of each category. Also, thing to note here, I think we all could agree that although this is a comprehensive list of 15 items, it doesn't cover everything you could be contaminated with. Most recently, the unfortunate events of Hurricane Helene, you've got floodwaters. What's in floodwater? Everything, right? So you need to be suspicious, highly suspicious of anyone who can claim that they can 100% clean floodwater. You don't know what's in it. Anything and everything can be in it. And I assure you of what's listed here, ISPs are tested on just these things. It's uncommon, really uncommon, that an ISP will test beyond this unless there's certain contaminants that would make them want to validate the cleaning. So no one's out there actively testing against 42 different contaminants, unless, of course, they're trying to prove, as each contaminant that they encounter, that their cleaning process is effective for it. So if you have anyone making claims outside of what's listed here, you need to get it in writing. You need to see the third-party validation testing that shows that they've been able to remove whatever it is that they say that they can remove. So I'll get off that soapbox. There's another piece within the cleaning verification. There's a bio requirement where the third party must demonstrate at least a 3-log reduction. So anything greater than 99.9% is what you're after. This is an easy requirement to meet. You can increase your water temperature up to 140 degrees in your washing machine. You could also add a fabric sanitizer that would also help you do this. Also, if you have an ozone generator, that also helps you get to this level as well. So this is how the test is run. If you look at the photograph in the top right corner, It's a scaled down piece of PPE. It has mesh pockets sewn throughout it. If you look at the white piece of paper that's on the table, you'll see the location of those pockets. Some of those pockets are external, some of those pockets are internal. And what happens is those chemicals that we just reviewed, they're taking from taking it into in droplet form and put onto a sample of fabric that's placed inside of those mesh pockets. What happens is those pockets are filled with swatches, and then it goes into the washing machine, and then it's audited for the entire wash process, and by a third-party agency. And when the wash process is over, the gear is dried. Those samples are placed in the little Petri dishes, as you see in the photograph, and they're sent off to a third-party lab. The third party will then analyze how much of those contaminants that were removed, and then that's what gets you the result. So there's other contaminants that are common that you come across in the fire service. What this photograph shows here, this is the bottom of a pant leg. And what went across was a piece of reflective trim. And at the very bottom, you'll see the outline of a cuff. And so this gear was contaminated with fuel. It was washed several times by the department, and it was sent in for cleaning because they couldn't remove the fuel smell. And what was apparent to us is it's likely behind those items, behind the reflective trim, behind the cuffs. And so what you see here is these are the cuff and trim was removed, and you can still see the oil and the fuel, still in those places. So the only way you're going to effectively get that clean is to remove those items, clean that area, and then replace those items and put it back into service. But again, if you've washed gear a handful of times, it still smells. More than likely, this is why you've got that issue. It's because it's wicked itself in behind reinforcements. Latex paint, if you get paint on your gear, just use 70% isopropyl alcohol, saturate the affected area, put it in an airtight bag, let it sit for an hour or so, and then check on it. What should happen is the isopropyl alcohol will liquefy the paint. You should be able to scrape it off, scrub it off, and wash as normal. This just isn't for turnout gear. If you get paint on your favorite sweatshirt or t-shirt or your pair of jeans at home, touching up the house or what have you, you can also take your shirt and saturate it with alcohol, and this will help get it clean as well. But in all cases, especially with turnout gear, you want to wash the alcohol out. That's not something you want to leave in your gear. I know it evaporates quickly, but you definitely want to follow it up with machine washing. As I mentioned a few moments ago, from a biological standpoint, you're able to wash your gear. If you have ozone, that'll help. You can raise your water temperature to 140, or you get a fabric sanitizer. The key here is your sanitizers that you're using, they need to be EPA registered in order for it to be just that, a sanitizer or a disinfectant. But because it's clothing, you're going to likely not exceed sanitization requirements. So you definitely want something at least that's a sanitizer. So with EV fires, that's something that's becoming more popular. Well, not more popular, but it's in the news and it's becoming more prevalent. Understand there are studies currently underway to understand what's in an EV fire. As of today, no one completely knows what are in those fires. So that said, going back to my point a few moments ago, if you have anyone who can claim that they can clean everything out from an EV fire, you're going to want to see what were all the possible contaminants. And as I said a moment ago, no one knows what all the contaminants are as of this very moment. So in order to know if you've removed something, you need to know what's contaminated on it. So there's work being done right now. So yes, obviously cleaning your gear is better than not cleaning your gear, but I want to caution you. Science is not there yet. There is not a silver bullet approach for effectively cleaning 100% of whatever's in these EV fires. There is work being done to determine it, and based off of the results of that work, industry will adapt and will um, uh, be able to demonstrate whether or not they can clean it. But as of right now, today, if someone is claiming that they can 100% clean an EV fire, I would be very interested in seeing the test results in writing from a validated third-party lab that says all the contaminants, which are still unknown, can be cleaned. One day we might get there, but we're not there yet today. So when gear is contaminated, what do you do? Well, NFPA 1851 has a decision tree that's listed, and it goes by the incident response. So depending upon what you got involved with, will determine what you do. Like if you're looking at this form here, if it's a CBRN event, you're going to condemn the gear, right? If it's a hazmat situation, talk to the hazmat team, try to determine if cleaning is possible, review the SDS, and see what you can do. Remember, at the end of the day, we all want to be safe, with this. So it may take time to determine what's on turnout gear, and likely what happens a few days after the incident's over is when you really get a true sense. And if that gear during those 2 days ended up being unsalvageable, so be it. At the end of the day, your health and safety is intact. But the things that you want to look for is it safe to handle? If it's not safe to handle, you're going to condemn it, right? Has it been contaminated with something that's going to ruin the gear? For instance, chlorine. If it has, we're condemn it. There's no point going forward. And if it is safe to handle, then you look at what's the effect of the effluent you're going to wash into the sewer system. I had someone recently come to us saying that they had Roundup contaminated on all of their gear. You look at the SDS sheets, it says quite clearly, do not put into the sewer system. So we advised the department to condemn that gear, which was a surprise to them. But again, when you read the SDS, you'll see that there's nothing you can do with it. So walk through the process. Again, as you are also looking at 1851, there are different types of contaminants. It breaks it down into not just the incident, but also contaminant specific, and it walks you through that process. And again, you can reach out to a third-party ISP, and they can help guide you as well. So the next steps for you as a department, if you're trained to do the cleaning, by all means, do just that. But if you're not, or if you feel better, send them off to a verified cleaner, a verified ISP, such as Gear Wash. You can certainly reach out to us and coordinate service. And then, if you enter into something where you need rental gear, we have that as well. And that'll help get you through that period of time. That said, that's my last slide. Thank you for everyone for joining, and we'll get to the question part.
Thanks, Brian. I don't have any questions coming in right now, but we'll give it a couple seconds and see if any come in.
Okay, very good.
Oh, we got one. How do you remove tar?
Tar. So tar, you'll need to more than likely soak in a delaminine-based product, water and delaminine for a period of time. If you're going to do that, outer shells only, do not soak your inner liners, so you want to take your inner liners out. Depending on the strength of the delaminine, it may or may not have an effect on the seam seal tape of your inner liner. You may or may not be aware all the seams are taped with a tape to keep biological matter and water from getting through. And one of the things that the laminine will also attack is adhesive. So soaking for a period of time. Now, if it's caked in tar where you could stand the garment up, I mean, you really need to take into consideration how old the gear is, and along with any other wear and tear that you see, it may not even be worth the extra effort.
Great. We have another one. How about removing the stuff from spray foaming ceilings?
Did you say spray foaming ceiling?
Yeah, maybe the stuff the spray foam.
Yeah,
for the attics. He just said attics.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I haven't seen much success removing that. If it's spotty contamination, you're able to perhaps cut out those contaminated areas and patch over them. But if it's beyond spotty, and if it's throughout the entire garment, more than likely you're probably going to need to condemn the garment.
Great, thank you. Another one, when removing paint, does the process suggested still meet the NFPA standards for the gear? I've received conflicting answers before.
The NFPA process, what do you mean by that?
I can wait to see if they clarify.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to it. If it's latex paint will come out with the isopropyl alcohol. If it's oil-based paint, you're not going to have much luck. But relative to the NFPA process, if you're referring to the cleaning validation piece, paint is not something that is listed in those cleaning agents. I'm sorry, those contaminants. So there wouldn't be any information on that level.
Okay. I haven't got any more clarification, but we do have a couple other questions. With outer shells now being PFAS free, have you seen any indication that the gear holds stains or is harder to clean?
Yeah, we have. As many of you know, the PFAS treatment on the outer shells was not only a water repellent, but really an oil repellent. And it did a very good job at doing just that. What you're seeing now with the different finishes is we're seeing gear is staining much more easily than it did before. We're also finding that the fire smell, if you will, is more prevalent in the fabric as compared to before. I mean, so much so, we've adjusted our wash cycles to accommodate for that, because what we had programmed before worked, but doesn't seem to work as well now. So we've had to make some tweaks there. But yeah, it is more susceptible to contamination, and particularly saturation, and even what you're getting into sometimes makes it through to the liner system, whereas before it took significant saturation for that to happen. So yes, there is a difference.
Great, thank you. Another one, do you think fire gloves should be washed in an extractor? I have heard you can, but some people say otherwise.
Well, 1851 recommends you wash by hand. So, and the idea behind that is you don't want to cross-contaminate the inside of the gloves with what's on the outside of the glove. So, if you're following 1851, you are not putting them in the wash machine. The only time what I would encourage you to do is talk to your glove manufacturer. Ultimately, each manufacturer writes the rules for how to maintain their own equipment. So if they have something that supersedes 1850, you would follow what they guide you to do. But an easy way to clean your gloves, have the firefighter wear their gloves, take some soap and water, wash your hands like you normally would, like you're washing your hands, rinse the gloves off, and away you go.
Thanks. And we have one more that I'm seeing. Do you prefer to remove suspenders from the outer shells when washing?
Years ago, suspenders were an issue, and the reason they were an issue was because the dyes that were used would bleed out. So 15, 20 years ago, if you wanted to turn your gear pink, one way to do it would be to leave the suspenders on. Since that point in time, the materials and the dyes used in suspenders are far more stable. You don't have that bleed that happened then. You could leave them on, you could take them off. It really doesn't matter. I mean, the only thing that would happen if you left them on, you might have a pretty big tangled mess when the gear comes out, particularly with suspenders. And if you washed a few pair of pants with them on, I could see that happening. But the fear before was you would turn your gear a color you may not want it to be.
Great, thanks, Brian. I'm not seeing any other questions come in, so I think we are good to wrap up.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. Happy to provide any additional information that you may need. Stay safe. Thank you.